Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, where small business is simplified for greater results. Brought to you by Resources and Development. Go to www.resources-development.com for help in taking your business to the next level. And now, help me welcome the host of the Biz Easy podcast, Steve McCrillis.
Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, coming to you live from the cultural capital of Mid-State Tennessee, where small business is simplified for greater results. My name is Steve, your host, as we learn how to stay better focused on the things that make you great. I'd like to introduce you to my partner and our resident guru of coaching, our lead business coach, Skip Williams.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, did you know the janitor said when he jumped out of the closet?
I beg to ask what?
Supplies.
Oh, that's right. You put the rim shot in. Oh, goodness. So what's the topic today, Skip?
Today we want to talk about recession proofing your business.
Ooh, a topical topic.
Yeah, when you turn on the financial news, everyone is speculating about the coming recession. And I wish I was smart enough to predict with any certainty if, when, and how deep it'll be. But I'm not going to go out on that limb. But I can say that preparedness is always a smart move. Any business owner that waits without making appropriate preparations, certainly playing with fire. So how do you make your business ready for whatever the economy throws at us? Well, it is much easier said than done, but why don't we go ahead with the punch list? First on the list is to hoard cash. Hoard as much cash as you can. Sounds simple, but let's get a little more specific. We want to put off large purchases as long as you can. If the purchase was going to be a nice to have that would not really improve sales or lower expenses, then that's obvious. But we also, if it was to increase the output of something, then consider that if things go south, you probably won't need as much capacity anyway. So plan accordingly. Think smartly. Make your operation more efficient, lean but not mean, finding less laborious ways of accomplishing just as much. Better utilization of the human as well as the fixed assets that you have. This will ultimately lead to better efficiency as well. Eliminate any overhead where you can. Shop your insurance, eliminate subscriptions, trim overhead positions if you can. Do not increase your debt load. However, if you're on some type of payment plan for an existing debt, I would not attempt to pay it down at this time because you'll still need to make payments through the recession. So just keep that cash in reserve. You want to renegotiate with suppliers. They may want to secure your loyalty before hard times hit. And watch and collect your accounts receivable a little bit more aggressively. Now, these things are always important in business, and they should be done regularly. But the goal here is to make as large a stack of cash as we can in order to help us through those lean times ahead. In an economy where cash is in short supply, you having plenty of cash makes you the king or queen.
Skip, I recently dealt a lot with bankers, small business bankers who primarily service the small business needs. And I was informed that by obtaining a line of credit, mostly when you don't need it, is better than waiting. Well, why? Because even though you may not need it now, the possibility of needing it may arise. So many people were urged to hold a line of credit, again, even if you don't use it, because when an economic tsunami comes up, like recently, you might not be able to get it. And it only costs about $100 to keep a line of credit. Does that fly in the face of your first principle of recession proofing, Skip?
No, just keep it as empty as possible, right? So that you have the full line of credit available going into those bad times. Nobody likes carrying debt, but also I would consider how you're going to use that money. If you're going to use that money just to perpetuate, just to get you through, you probably have to do it. But it goes against the grain of my two legitimate reasons for borrowing cash is to increase sales or lower expenses. And if this is just keeping you alive, this line of credit, it means you're going to have a heavier load coming out of the recession to carry as well.
So I have run into two different sides of that fence. There are many people who are carrying a lot of credit. And there are some that are absolutely adverse. I don't want any debt, no credit. Well, the reality of it is having a credit, available credit from a bank, whatever your company, wherever you're eligible to get, I guess the point is to secure it, as these bankers have been urging, secure it, because it only to keep it active is only $100, but it doesn't mean to say that you have to draw off it. But at least you have now. Most recently, in the course of COVID, people were asked to carry a line of credit, and all of a sudden COVID hit, which was unpredicted naturally. And then when they went back to get a credit, because the business started to drop for obvious reasons, they couldn't get it.
That's right. No, I think the lesson that you and I are both trying to say is secure the line of credit, but try not to use it.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So second in our list is to secure loyalty and make sure that your existing customers are happy. You're going to do this on a regular basis anyway, but maybe a little bit extra effort in reaching out, following up, securing their loyalty. Maybe there's ways you can create added value rather than lowering prices. And this could be something specific, a specific need of a particular customer, or it could be something that you do across the board. But we want to be able to deliver a better product or better provide better service. So the other thing we can do is create loyalty incentives, get people in the habit of coming to do business with you now, so that you're still the go-to place during harder times. Look at your warranties, perhaps as a way to way to add value or reduce the risk for the customer. And this one is I really kind of like it, especially for companies that do businesses with other companies, B2B businesses. Perhaps once in a while you could refer a customer to them, and that would gain you huge loyalty.
Sure.
So this is critical. This is critical so that they stay with you through those lean times, and your customer loss is way less than your competitors.
But isn't maintaining loyalty from customers and vendors important, even when you're not preparing for an economic issue? You touched on it.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, do an extra effort, think outside the box a little bit, maybe switch things up, maybe talk to your customers and find out what it is why they do business with you, or what would gain their loyalty if you don't already have it.
Fair enough.
The third on our list is lowering your personal overhead. Every household requires different amount of cash each month, but if you can eliminate and reduce expenses where you're able, like subscriptions, utilities, and retail purchases, if you can pay down your credit cards, pay off loans that are close to term, if you can reduce your monthly cash needs, the panic won't be as desperate if that time does come. It'll allow you to keep a little bit more cash in the business to provide even more safety as well as growth. If you don't do these things now, you may be forced to do them during the recession without nearly as much planning or positive results.
I found that most small businesses have their personal finance tied very closely to their business finances. They never really segregated by legal entity structuring. They kept everything very close to each other. Any suggestions about separation of the two?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a one-man band type of business, then you can probably work out of your personal, or you can probably commingle your cash without too many problems. But if you've got any type of corporation, employees, partners, stockholders, investors, whatever, commingling that cash can get you in trouble. And it's just not good practice. I would much rather even if you're trying to take a personal expense out of the business and try to get away with it, I would rather you do that by entering it in the form of an expense report or something like that, and keep them, and so that they're not mingled. But either way, what we're trying to do is be more austere in our business as well as our personal life, so that we have that cash going into those lean times. And if we can do that, the last thing I wanted to talk about was taking advantage of that changing economy. So let's assume that you've done these things successfully and you have more than adequate cash reserves. Not an easy task. Like I said, this is easier said than done, but let's assume that that's happened. You want to ask yourself, do you want to come out alive, or do you want to be in a stronger position after the recession? Because there's opportunity here. During a recession, it's a great time to grow if you have deep enough pockets. As you know, people in the stock market can make money even in a bear market. They've got to play their cards right. So one idea might be to be able to buy up some of your competitors that are struggling. There'll probably be some great bargains out there. A couple of bewares here is, do not pull the trigger on buying during a recession too soon. The later you wait, the better the price and the sooner to the end of the recession, and that will preserve your cash. Buying competitors will give you a larger slice of the existing market now, and especially after the recession's over. Another thing you do is expand to new locations. Landlords out there are looking for you. Whether you rent or whether you buy, that next location you should be able to negotiate much better terms, and perhaps you can time that new location to open just as the recession ends. That would be excellent planning, and it'll be easier to find and negotiate with contractors while their business is slow as well.
Sure.
We talked about holding off on large purchases earlier, but again, if you've got the cash and you're in a recession and it looks like it's coming to an end, that's a good time to negotiate for better pricing and better financing with your vendors, because their business is probably slow as well. You don't want to wait for the rush. When the recession's over, it's too late to take full advantage of these things, like hiring employees or stocking up on supplies. Don't wait for your competitors to start that ball rolling again.
Yeah. So, it's funny reflecting back and working with small businesses prior to 2008. During that period of time, as you know, we had the housing crisis. Well, most of them were unconcerned about growing sales. In fact, I remember asking the question, is it your ambition to grow sales? And they suggested, well, they can't even keep up with their existing sales. But suddenly, about 2010 and forward, I got a lot more attention to that question. It's funny how we must live it, endure it, and overcome it before we decide it's real, and before we decide that we should, make some arrangements in case that happens. But it's shocking and sad to me that in even asking a question, what are you doing to grow your sales? I can't keep up. Well, what are you doing to preserve cash? Well, I have got a lot of debt to pay. And then all of a sudden it hits you. And even a recent economic downturn during COVID, who saw that coming? I mean, if I think to your point, the point of this entire podcast today, it's look for the signs and be prepared. Am I gathering that correctly?
That's right. You got to keep your eyes wide open. We can't wait till we're in so much pain that before we call the doctor. We've got to look at what's happening in the market around us, not just what's happening to us right here at this moment. Because the longer you wait to make those decisions, the harder it is, right? If you know it's 200 miles to the next gas station early on, then you might be able to drive more cautiously, say you get higher mileage or whatever, and make it to that gas station. But if you wait till the last 15 miles to worry about it, then you're going to be in trouble.
Good analogy. Yeah.
So everything I've talked about today depends on how deep your pockets are and how much cash you've hoarded, not to mention timing. A few sacrifices today could mean you end up with twice as much or more business after the sun comes back out. So be wise, be fruitful, and be careful.
I would add good timing to the list. Fair?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Skip, great information today. Again, I urge you to access this information from our website. In the blog section, if you didn't record that or write notes fast enough, check it out at resources-development.com. And you can pick up all of the blogs, all of the information, because all this content that we typically bring out on podcasts has been written in a blog form. We essentially recite it with our own little editorial as we go along. Now, I liken this particular topic to purchasing stock, if I come back to it. When the prices go down, I was a financial advisor for a while. Most people emotionally think to sell to avoid further losses. Whereas any financial advisor worth their salt would suggest that you should buy more when the price goes down to double down on recovery, provided you didn't buy some nonsense offbeat stock. Now, if you're having an issue, it's likely others in the industry are having an issue as well, provided they didn't follow Skip's rules. Would you agree?
Well, that's right, and they could be great opportunity for you, Steve. They are hurting. They just went out from under. That probably won't pay you to take the business, but probably pretty close to that in many cases.
Well, Skip, you gave me a great idea for a future podcast, and that's about acquiring your competition, because you recommended that as one of the ways that you can recession proof, or at least during the course of that recession, if you have recession proof, to essentially find your way through the recession. Because when you're buying a company, most oftentimes you may not be buying the building that they're in. You're not going to be buying the equipment that they have, perhaps, depending if you're manufacturing or if you're a service provider. But you are going to be buying that laundry list of clients or customer lists that they have that can easily transition into what you're doing. So when you think about buying another company, you're not buying the whole lock, stock, and barrel. You're essentially buying the essential parts, which really are what? Your client list and any contracts they may have, future royalties that they may have. And if they have not prepared themselves to the manner in which you have identified today, well, they're going to be short of cash and they're going to want some up, particularly if the owner, who typically is just one guy with a handful of people, he gets desperate. And I'm not suggesting to prey upon the desperate, but it may be an opportune a place for you to expand your business.
Right. I mean, buying a competitor out not only means doubling your business, it also means taking opening up a whole new share of the marketplace for yourself as well. So it makes a lot of sense. It also makes sense with other types of businesses that may be related to you. You certainly wouldn't be interested in buying them, but you might be able to, buy their mailing list or put together a joint venture with them or something like that. Because people are reaching out and looking for any places where they can A, bring in more cash, or B, bring in more business. So,
every time I sat down with a business owner, I asked him what his market area is, particularly if he was a service provider, plumber, electrician, landscaper, whatever. What is your market area? That was even effective in distribution in many cases and manufacturing. What is your service area? And if they gave me a 50, 80 miles, I said, well, okay. So had you ever considered another location? And oftentimes they said, well, that's the only way I'm going to get it because I've got 50% of the market here. The only way I can expand my market share is to have another location elsewhere. So you pointed that out as one of the ways that you can recession proof, or what you can do during the course of a recession, providing again that you prepared for it, to expand your customer base. And again, when you think about the expense of doing that, if you've managed your cash effectively, when a recession period or an economic tsunami comes around, suddenly most things actually decrease in price, like what's happened to commercial real estate right now. I mean, it would be
exactly.
an optimal time if you wanted any kind of space to pick up some real estate. Perhaps not today, but a year and a half ago, it would have been an optimal time. I mean, you just have to understand the ebbs and flows of your kind of business, which you typically do, and ebbs and flows of the adjoining business that you may have to encounter, real estate and capital expenditures and things of that nature.
Yeah, when you're playing the stock market, you kind of have to understand the overall economy, and you have to understand the economy of each of the businesses that you're contemplating investing in.
Sure.
But when you're a business owner, you have to understand the overall economy and the economy of your industry and your business specifically. So it's a lot less to gamble with, and you should be a lot closer to the issues and be able to take advantage of it.
Well, I hate to be overly repetitious here, but coming back to some of the things that we've talked about in the past is understanding your cash flow, knowing where your business is, because as we have explained in several podcasts and as we explained to every small business owner we come in contact with, the more you focus on being a person that runs the business as opposed to a person that works the business, the more effectively you can grow it. But if you are a guy that works in the business and doesn't work on the business, well, it makes it exceedingly difficult for you to be able to turn and change and make the decisions that you need to in the event something you get a curveball thrown at you.
And you can be a craftsman and trying to hone the perfect corner of the cabinetry that you build, or you can look at see what the market is looking for. They may not be looking for that type of cabinet right now. Which do you think is more important? They're both important, but which is more important for the future of your business?
Keep your eye on the ball, we say. Just keep your head up, not your head down. So again, all this information is available to you. If you weren't able to take notes fast enough, on resources-development.com. And you can reach out to Skip personally at skip@resources-development.com. We welcome any comments, we welcome any input, and we also welcome any additional questions that we have that you may have to answer about small business, so we can populate our future podcasts. Not that we're running low on topics right now, but we can always replace some of the things we got in the hopper with something that you may bring up that might be more contemporary. We appreciate your listening. We appreciate your following, and we enjoyed sharing our time with you today. And with that, Skip,
That is a wrap.